Hello, hunters, and welcome back to TheSalawag's Why It's Great Gut Reaction, where I watch things and react from the gut. Yesterday, I had the pleasure of watching Francis Ford Coppola's Megalopolis. I have to admit, I have not seen a Francis Ford Coppola movie outside of Godfather 1 and Godfather 2. I still haven't seen 3. I know, bad cinephile. Bad. Méchant, TheSalawag, méchant, as my French teacher would say. But I honestly, okay, so all that being said, I liked Megalopolis a lot. I thought it was, I need to do my research, but it seemed like it was based on a play, a Shakespeare play. There was a lot of Shakespearean quotations. I distinctly had the feeling that's where this was coming from, but, you know, I didn't do my research. But if I have any fun factoids, I'll put them right here. On the whole, I actually, what's interesting is what got me to watch the movie was seeing so many reviews where it was very clear that a lot of reviewers seemed confused by the movie, or something about the film was confusing. And as someone who tends to confuse people a lot, I just thought, oh, maybe it's right up my alley. Maybe as a confusing person, I'll understand this movie, because it seems like a lot of people kind of like scratching their heads as to what the movie's about. But I refrained from watching those reviews. It was just in the thumbnails, or, you know, whatever, little comments here and there people would make where they were stressing how they were confused. But to me, I thought it was a pretty straightforward movie. I thought it was very creative, very artsy. Adam Driver, who's the star, Caesar, dang it, I'm forgetting the last name now, but he's Caesar, in New Rome, or New York City. And he's essentially in kind of a grudge match between a few different people in the city. Adam Driver, as Caesar, is this very wealthy and powerful architect who, at the same time, is part of the board of the development board for the city. So he's in the position to do what he does, I guess. I don't know much about city planning and how that all works. But he's kind of in a grudge match with the mayor, played by Giancarlo Esposito from Breaking Bad. It's sort of the main drama in the movie is their conflict. And then simultaneously, Shia LaBeouf plays his cousin. Both Caesar and Shia LaBeouf, whose character I forget, because to me I'm just like, oh my god, it's Shia LaBeouf. Sorry. But yeah, both Caesar and Shia LaBeouf are cousins from a very wealthy family, very wealthy, powerful family in the city. Like I said, this is very Shakespearean. So I feel like I should have read the play Julius Caesar to be prepared for this. And again, if this is related to the play, I'll put a factoid here. But yeah, so all in all, I mean, I felt like it was easy enough for me to follow. We got rich families, rich relatives. I'm a huge fan of Romeo and Juliet. The Baz Luhrmann's William Shakespeare's Romeo plus Juliet is seriously one of my favorite films of all time. And I felt in a lot of ways, this movie reminded me of that. But at some points it was kind of the low-key version, and at other points it was the even artsier, more experimental version, which I thought was beautiful. If anything, I think Romeo plus Juliet is like this pop art explosion, and this is more of a going back to just general artistic creativity. I don't know how to describe it, but essentially what we have is Adam Driver wants to build Megalopolis. It's going to be this sort of special. He's trying to rebuild Rome, or New York City. It's clearly New York City. He's trying to rebuild it, or rebuild a sort of a home. He's trying to rebuild the entire concept of what a home or a neighborhood is supposed to be for people. He wants to build something new and bold and innovative and creative. And I think what is confusing about the movie is that it appears to be in the present day, and yet here and there's clearly futuristic technology. It doesn't seem like it's so far away from us, but it's clearly a few years ahead of us. I do think the movie says that this is some point in the future. There's a number of title cards that kind of tell you what's going on. We have the beautiful voice of Lawrence Fishburne as the historian or the narrator, or also as Adam Driver's driver. I think that's my one stickler for this movie, was that I hated seeing Morpheus be the driver, because to me he's always going to be Morpheus. To me he's always going to be the one who saved humanity because he found Neo and because of his unalterable faith in his mission. So he's always going to be like the good version of Darth Vader to me. You know what I mean? It's like, well, if Darth Vader went on the good path, that's what Morpheus is to me. But aside from that, it was just nice to see Lawrence Fishburne on the big screen. I know he was in another movie, space movie. I was less interested in seeing that, but still interested. But I'm probably just going to wait for streaming on that one. But it was wonderful to hear his voice as the narrator, as he connects the pieces and sometimes gives Shakespearean quotation that kind of gives you the subtext or the context of what's going on. So we have Adam Driver trying to build Megalopolis. We have Giancarlo Esposito as the mayor, who's against everything he does. There's some bad history there. Giancarlo Esposito used to be a prosecutor in this world who was prosecuting, but failed to prosecute Adam Driver for alleged crimes in the past. All the while, Giancarlo Esposito's daughter, Julia, played by the wonderful Natalie Emmanuel from Game of Thrones. I remember I was very struck by her in that show, and it's very cool seeing her crop up here and there since Game of Thrones. But definitely, she was wonderful as the female lead. She was wonderful. Yeah, she was wonderful as the female lead of Megalopolis, where, despite her father's despite her father's hatred for Caesar, she's fascinated by him. She still shares some of her dad's anger, but but nonetheless, she wants to know more about this guy, and ends up working for him and supporting his cause. And all the while, Shia LaBeouf and some other characters are trying to sabotage Caesar a little bit more directly. They're not just moral, verbal rivals, but they're direct rivals, trying to damage Caesar's reputation and basically tear him down. And all the while, we also have Aubrey Plaza, who plays Wow Platinum. That is her character's name. It took me about 35 minutes to realize, oh, her name is Wow. And trust me, she earns every single letter of Wow in this movie. She has played sort of sexually charged, crazy characters before. My favorite until now was her character in Legion. I love Legion. Dan Stevens, who was Justin Cuckoo and King Kong and Godzilla: Rise of the New Empire. He plays the lead character, Legion. And Aubrey Plaza's his friend, who's also kind of stuck in his head. Great role, great show. But that's where I know Aubrey Plaza from, besides Scott Pilgrim, of course. But here in this show, in Megalopolis, she's the only character whose name I remember because she is literally that shocking. You know, she loves Caesar. She loves Adam Driver's character. But she herself, she's a reporter. She wants power. She wants wealth. And this drives her to find someone else by the name of Jon Voight. So Jon Voight's also in this movie. He plays Caesar's grandfather or father. The relationships are a little bit confusing because there's so many different characters and there's so many uncles and dads and this and that. That part is a bit confusing, but I mean, what I like about the movie is it just kind of keeps going, and I don't feel like it's inconsistent. I think it just keeps moving, and it gets us through these relationships, and the relationships are interesting. It's very Shakespeare. It's very Romeo plus Juliet Shakespeare, but for the 2024 era. And Adam Driver's vision for his Megalopolis is very cool. You just kind of get bits and pieces of it across the whole movie. while really the movie is just about all the drama that he endures trying to make his vision true. And also, the whole time you're wondering, is he really responsible for these crimes? Does he deserve some of the hatred that he gets from some of his family members? And that's part of the intrigue of watching the movie as well. It's like you're living inside the VH1 special of a Shakespeare play. So I thought that was fun and fascinating. That's just, I really don't want to get beyond that. Shia LaBeouf is also a sort of surprising and shocking character. And let me tell you, okay, worth the price of admission. Number one, WoW Platinum. For all you young, hungry, hetero men out there, WoW Platinum will wow you quite a bit. She is definitely number one. But also, I'm not trying to take anything away from her. Aubrey Plaza is a great actress. She really, her being so wow is part of the character. But you see, I think she has the most emotion brewing in this movie that I've seen from a performance from her so far. And I haven't seen all of her stuff. I've seen a few of her movies, a few of her appearances. But what I've seen so far, I think this is kind of her best role yet. Where just because of what she's going through, what she's thinking about, what she wants, and what she's willing to do to get it, I think it just makes her such an interesting character. Like, I really think she delivers a good performance here. So she's number one on the worth the price of admission. Number two, again, the other female, Natalie Emmanuel. I think she really drives the first half of this movie. She's our character who is the window into Adam Driver's life. And then sort of the second half of the movie is more on him because now we've been introduced to him. But it's a beautiful, the movie is told in these beautiful little chapters where all of our characters get a moment to be important. And all of our supporting characters become bigger characters by the end. And the main characters shrink just a bit because of how intense the drama gets. And then number three, or really it should be flipped. Number one, the worth the price of admission. If you have the fortune of seeing this movie in theaters, let's just say it's a scene of comeuppance featuring a couple of our characters who might be Shia LaBeouf and WoW Platinum. They have two amazing scenes, or not. One is kind of like wow, and the other is wow. Like, there's a hilarious scene of comeuppance for both of those characters for some of the drama that they cause. I'm not going to say what the drama is, and I'm not going to say what the comeuppance is, but it's hilarious, and it is set up earlier in the movie. You don't think it's going to go the way that it goes, but it's set up early on in the movie, involving the character that delivers the comeuppance, and it's got to be the funniest scene in the movie. The movie is just so bizarre and crazy. It really, but also at the same time, it is still kind of a classic film. It's still a little bit of a stage play. It's still a bit of this, a little bit of that, but it's also very artistic. I love what Francis Ford Coppola did with this movie. And the drama it feels real. It's a nice kind of old school but new school movie at the same time. I think it's really nice to watch a movie that has such a great built-in world with really fleshed out characters and it goes far. It pushes the limit of what you would expect or what could happen in a movie. Again, I think a lot of times in movies, the only place where they push the limit is their visual effects, but nothing that really happens with the characters is that dramatic. I kind of referred to this with Guardians of the Galaxy in a different review where I thought, on the whole, really strong picture, but the only way to... it was my Footloose review. Came out a couple days ago. I really felt that movie it needed one scene that just pushed it, that tested the limit of the audience, and I think that should have been an actual dance-off at the end of that movie. But that's really for another discussion, another time. But I just mean, that movies, they tend to try and push the limit in terms of sexuality or some kind of shock value. But to me, like, the most shock value is like, well, what the characters do to each other. You know what I mean? Not just that something shocking happens, but that the characters get pushed to a place where they do something to each other that's insane. And I think one of the great examples of this is actually early on in the movie, where Adam Driver's Caesar is getting wasted and he gets in a fight with somebody, but it's being intercut with this sort of subjective, in his own mind conversation where he's kind of you're seeing tons and tons of reflections of his face, and he's talking to himself, and he's kind of having a wild Doctor Strange outer body experience, but it's being intercut with his fight, with his drunk fight with somebody. And I think that's something where it's pushing the limit because it's something the character's going through, but it's also artistically it's pushing the limit. It's giving the audience something a little bit unusual, but it 100% puts you in the headspace of that character. While my number one wow, worth the price of admission scene is not that, it's something a lot more simple, but again, it's hilarious. But that's just what I'm saying. Like, this movie takes chances. It isn't afraid of having a sense of humor. It's not adhering to its tone. I mean, it has a tone, it has a vibe, it has a quality. But in every way, shape, and form, it's just moving the story forward with all of its character flaws and issues. Nobody's really perfect. Even Natalie Emmanuel's character, Julia, she starts off kind of, a little bit in the doghouse with her father. Nobody's perfect in this movie, which I really like. Again, another mistake a lot of movies make, which is, I think, is kind of the human condition today. I think everyone thinks they're a good person, so no one really wants to look at their own flaws. And so you get a lot of these movies where everyone thinks they're perfect, and everyone thinks, well, I'm just a good person. Like, everyone's got flaws. Everyone's got something that they're not doing right. And what I like about this movie is that at least it has that honesty. We're on every single level for every single character. And there's a couple sweethearts who are angels. There's always a couple saints and a couple devils. But, for the most part, everyone kind of lives in that gray area where no one's exactly perfect, which I think was kind of a little bit more subtle in The Godfather, because here we are, we're dealing with gangsters, but we're supposed to see Don Vito Corleone as the most righteous or the most good gangster, because for the most part, he's doing things for his family and to take care of his neighborhood, but he's still committing horrendous crimes and killing people, which is ultimately the message of the movie when you reach the end of the movie and Al Pacino takes on the throne. But in this movie, where we're not dealing with gangsters necessarily, it's still society. Society is not a perfect place, and things are kind of muddled and crazy. And I really like that sort of moral ambiguity. It's a little more honest. It's a little bit more real. While there are certain political punches taken in this movie, and you know what, I understand everyone's got a point of view, but I'm not even against it, because I feel like the movie earns it with how well it sort of portrays everything. I think within its own universe, within this sort of Shakespearean play of a picture, I feel like nothing feels too much like slap you in the face politics of today, because then that would make me respect the movie a little bit less. But there's a couple of very obvious cues of certain political people that they're taking a jab at, but I think there's a little wiggle room in there to say there's maybe a little bit judgment for everybody else too, but I'll get to that more later. But that being said, spoiler free, did I like this movie? Yes, I actually really liked Megalopolis. I didn't have any trouble understanding it. I'll get into spoilers why I think people maybe got a little bit confused, but other than that, I really don't understand what was confusing about this movie. I think I don't know. I just don't get what's confusing about this picture. You got all these family relationships. You got jealous relatives. You got spurned lovers, new lovers. You got a nice romance story. I don't really understand what exactly is confusing about the movie, because I feel that if you're just paying attention and really thinking, you know what I mean? If you come into it with a clear head, you should basically be able to follow the movie. I don't think it's so wild in its storytelling that you should be left behind in any kind of way. I really think it makes plenty of sense. I do think it's a bit overwhelming as an artistic experience, just because most movies are so straightforward. This movie takes a lot of artistic choices. But again, I think it totally fits with this sort of, it is a semi-futuristic world. So some of the things that happen are not just strange art choices. It, to me, is clearly the technology of this world is playing a part in the presentation of things. But I don't want to say what happens because it's a spoiler. And I think, you are an individual. You should think for yourself. Go into this movie as open-minded as possible and try to just absorb it and see what's going on. And let me know what you think. So that's what I got to say for spoiler-free. I really liked Megalopolis, Francis Ford Coppola. I gave you a little golf clap at the end. I really liked the picture. It was nice seeing Giancarlo Esposito not play just a straightforward bad guy. I think I hate Hollywood's utter lack of imagination. You're literally the imagination factory of the world, and yet, he played a bad guy, so I can see him playing a bad guy for me. That's not the thinking that made the Dark Knight trilogy great. Otherwise, Gary Oldman would have been Ra's al Ghul, and we would have all been just like, wow, Christopher Nolan, you sure know how to pigeonhole Gary Oldman. Good job. Maybe we won't watch The Dark Knight. Who knows? This movie's creative. It's fun. It's full of wow. There's a lot of wow. And so go check it out. Think for yourself. Really, you gotta have an open mind. You gotta think clearly. Pay attention to the movie. It's not a dumb movie that you're supposed to forget about later. It's very well crafted. So check it out. Megalopolis. Great job, cast and crew. Great job, Francis Ford Coppola. And here we go into spoilers. Spoilers! Okay, alright, okay. Where do I start with this movie? This is the very first time I wish I had a chat just to go, hey, where would you like me to start? Because I don't know where to start. Let's start with the part that maybe confuses people. This movie starts off with a scene. Remember, this is a spoiler section, but this is the beginning of the movie. This movie starts off with a scene where Adam Driver is on the roof of his building, and he starts to fall off of it, and then he says, "Time, stop," and he stops. So he's about to fall off the roof, fall to his death. He says, "Time, stop." He stops and pulls himself back up from falling. And it's more like the revelation, it feels like the moment of revelation that he has a power to stop time itself. And it is a bit confusing because you're not really sure, is this in his own mind or is this real? Because in the very next scene, he's sitting there demolishing a building, and as it's coming down, he says, "Time, stop." He makes a little note, and Natalie Emmanuel is there, Julia is there, and she witnesses it. So she witnesses time stopping, and thus it's kind of evidence that maybe it's real. Maybe this is a real thing that is happening. His mind is so powerful he can stop time itself. And the movie does have a couple lines about how that could potentially be possible. I don't really remember those. But I like this element. It made the character more interesting. It really made you have to ask, why is this in this movie? Because there's nothing else about the movie that is supernatural. Everything else is maybe science fiction. She's talking to a recorder, but the recorder is a gold ring on her finger. Science fiction, future tech. or it's Shakespearean drama, which is Shia LaBeouf as Claudio, the cousin, who is constantly jealous of Caesar and everything he does. The movie, for every other character, is one of those two things, except when it comes to Adam Driver and Natalie Emmanuel with this sort of time-stopping thing. And there's a, maybe my only criticism of the movie, but it's not really a criticism because I think it's fine, is that there's a brief period where he cannot stop time. But it's literally one or two scenes. But the reason I forgive it is because it's really, the importance is not that he loses his power. The importance of that moment is that it's Natalie Emmanuel, who's been working for him for a couple weeks at this point. She has a secret affection for him, and he perhaps has a hidden affection for her. But it's not until she asks him to stop time for her that suddenly he gets his ability back. This is a very quick turnaround for him losing his power, but I do still feel like the meaning behind him getting his power back, he finding his creativity, it's sort of maybe thematically it means love helps you find the way. You know what I mean? Because this whole movie starts off with this drama where the mayor, Giancarlo Esposito, is saying, "You killed your wife. I'm certain of it, even though you were exonerated." And so there's this drama, there's this fear about this character, Adam Driver, that he's much more nefarious than he really is. And we find out later that he was not responsible for it in any way, shape, or form. But, perhaps the death of his wife was really what sort of took him down this sort of darker path where he starts drinking all the time. He's sort of lost his vision. He has a vision that he's working toward with an icy focus, but there's something about him that's still kind of lost, still kind of gazing away, like, how am I supposed to achieve what I want to achieve? And it is the fact of Natalie Emmanuel's love for him that makes him overcome that hump. And he actually, we see him drinking a lot less in the second half of the movie. I really like that progression of his character. All the while we have Shia LaBeouf cross-dressing and sleeping with his sisters and all this stuff. It's very gnarly. But even Natalie Emmanuel, like right up front, she's on the front page of a newspaper having gone fully nude in a club where she's hanging out with Claudio's sisters. And she seems to be partying with them. It seems like she has a very intimate relationship with the sisters as well. So she's, not that I'm saying bisexuality is a problem. It's more just that she is such a free spirit in this way. And it's just that these sisters, this family is not known for being noble people. They're kind of known for being depraved, and it's not just the incestuousness, but you see their behavior across this movie. Everyone's very wild, very selfish, very self-involved, and even this is the criticism of Caesar, that he is sort of the most cold and self-involved. But for him, it's with his work. And so there is a sort of a sad scene where Caesar's talking to his mom, and she's upset that he didn't thank her when he won a Nobel Prize. And at the same time, she's constantly accusing him of hurting her for all these very small things, and all he did was kiss her hand. It's like, ow, you hurt me. Really, but subtextually, she feels left out in some kind of way, while simultaneously, she's also a very kind of toxic personality. So you kind of see that this sort of toxic family, there's a bit of trickle down, that all this wealth did not make them better people. And really, this is Giancarlo Esposito's problem with this entire family, but specifically with Caesar, is that he sees Caesar as the epitome of this depravity and these problems, even though he'll later reveal that he falsely accused him of attempting to kill his wife. It's just that he has such a disdain for this family, and him in particular being the most sort of cut off, and they really battle against each other in these very theatrical ways in public. And Caesar's constantly sort of embarrassing him with his own intelligence, while simultaneously, Giancarlo Esposito's argument is like, you're not a moral person, so your intelligence is not really helping anybody. But that's kind of what the whole movie is driving towards. I like that all these relationships, every relationship is tied to a theme. And this is something I want to get into. Like this, remember, this podcast, I know on the surface I try to make it look like a regular podcast, and most of the time I am just kind of reviewing off the cuff like a regular reviewer. But the real goal and the heart of this podcast is, if you're a filmmaker, a storyteller, we got to be willing to look at these movies as more than just the disposable entertainment that everyone else looks at them. These movies that we watch, especially the best ones, all have values, themes, messages. That is what makes storytelling valuable in the first place. I mean, if you going to religion, right? The Bible, the Quran, whatever book you read, if you're Buddhist, whatever your religion, all of these texts are filled with stories. And all of these stories have everything to do with our nature as human beings. If you look at the tale of Exodus, Moses realizes that he was born a slave and raised as a prince of Egypt, but once he realizes what his actual heritage is, he can no longer allow the subjugation of his own people, and realizes through that revelation that slavery as a whole must be done with. And that's the theme and message of that story. This is a story, how many thousands of years old, who knows? Maybe it even predates the Bible, we don't know. But this story, so many years old, it's a human story that has a morality about it, that's telling us how society should be operated. And that is that core heart of what storytelling is about, is why we go to stories, to find our own humanity. The best stories tend to do that. That's why the spoiler section, I've been learning how to do this podcasting thing all this time. I've been trying to get better. I'm not a great podcaster. There's so many better ones. But that's the goal of this podcast, is let's look at these themes. There's no question that Shia LaBeouf's character is a Trump parody. The whole sleeping with the sisters, I feel, is a reference to when Trump was running for president the first time, and there's some comment lifted, well, if she wasn't my daughter, I would, and I don't want to get into that. I do my best not to get into politics. It's really none of my business, because I know that I don't study enough into what's going on with these people. I don't know the facts well enough to stand on one side or the other. But that being said, it's not just that Shia LaBeouf represents Trump, but within the context of the story, he represents jealousy. He represents how in society, and it's much more emotionally palatable that they're relatives, but in society, even amongst friends, there can become these jealousies that split people apart, and that make some people act with certain amounts of subterfuge. Claudio represents that jealousy, that even when it's your own family member, you can't just let your family member be as successful and great as they can be, because out of jealousy, rather than earning your path, you decide you'll tear down this person and take whatever opportunity presents itself to become above them. And rightfully so, it does not work out. Because inevitably, this is why I hate the term fake it till you make it, because that's what, to me, is that's as far as fake it till you make it can take you. Eventually, you're so fake, you get caught. and there's just no recourse beyond that. And that's what happens to Shia LaBeouf at the end of the week. He gets totally busted being fake, being wrong, doing everything the wrong way, and he gets his comeuppance for it. Twice. The first time, now that I'm in spoilers, we can talk about my favorite scene. When Wow, okay, yeah, first we got Wow and her legal nephew, Shia. They're fooling around on a desk. I'm like, oh, and it is such a hot, steamy, sexual scene. I was like, whoa, I've never been jealous of Shia LaBeouf before, but at the same time, I want to work in Hollywood. Don't think these thoughts. Don't think these thoughts. I want to work with Aubrey Plaza someday. Don't think these thoughts. But nonetheless, it's such a hot, steamy scene. And yet at the same time, wait a second, you're married to his grandpa or his uncle, whatever the relationship is. You're married to his relative, you're cheating on the relative, and you're just doing this power play. Like, it's the levels of Wow are ridiculous. But the comeuppance when Jon Voight shoots them both with the arrow. Oh, I did not expect him to shoot Wow right in the chest. And you see, Aubrey Plaza's so good that I can just call her Wow. She's so good. She's just Wow. She's not the girl from Legion. She's not the girl from Scott Pilgrim. She's Wow in this movie. I did not think he would shoot her in the chest at all. I thought maybe he'll shoot her sort of maybe in the shoulder, wound her, because he's playing such an old, feeble guy anyway, wasted, drunk all the time. I thought there's no way. And the whole Robin Hood thing, because it's set up earlier in the movie that he's going to be the Robin Hood. He wants to be Robin Hood. In essence, he wants to be a good person. He doesn't want to be a selfish rich person, which he's kind of been. He wants to be a good person. There's a desire there. But it's when he realizes that his wife, he learns at some point, I guess off screen, that his wife, Wow, it's just like, geez, the minute that happens, so bad. That both his wife and his nephew have been messing around and have been plotting against him. He recognizes their game very quickly, and then ploys them back by pretending to be much more feeble than he is. And I love how, he's got the arrow under the blanket, but he's saying, "Do you see my boner? It's just when I get excited to see her, it just springs." And then, when they're not expecting it, he throws over the blanket. It's not a boner, it's an arrow. Shoots her right in the chest. Oh my God. And that's not enough, because then he shoots Shia LaBeouf in the ass twice. And I just thought that everyone this was a very small theater, but it erupted with laughter. The whole theater was laughing. For as few people were in it, it was a loud, ruckus laughter. Shia LaBeouf, because both the character deserved it, and it's just so unexpected. Really, you know what I mean? Like, that's an unexpected but fun. It's very fun. And to keep the fun going, just a couple scenes later, Shia LaBeouf's little minion guy who has like a third eye. I can't recognize him. I'm not sure where I recognize him from, but I recognize that actor. He's yanking the arrows out of his ass. It's just like Shrek and Fiona. But man, I love that. But again, comeuppance. So even though in the real world sometimes, or most of the time, or a lot of time, the greedy do get ahead, but in fiction, in fantasy, we get the opportunity for the good guy to win. And every now and again in the real world, the good guys do win. I think when we all band together and we stop trying to hate each other for this reason or that, we can do some good, as long as we're not witch hunting. Well, I guess Shia LaBeouf gets witch hunted. Anyway, it's amazing. And then that leads to Shia LaBeouf being strung up and they throw the red hats at him. So there's your anti-Trumpness. But I can't believe that happened. It's so refreshing. That's what this movie is. All the artsy fartsy parts. Because look, I'm an artist. So what's cool, watching this movie is seeing that experimental nature be set free within the movie. You know what I mean? I think for most people, and then maybe this was part of why people were confused. I think people were confused by the stopping time. I think people were confused by the sort of, are we in the present day or are we in the future? They were probably confused by a lot of these relationships. I felt like all of this, to me, I was kind of catching along the way. I felt like this movie is not stopping to explain everything, and it doesn't really have to. If you're just paying attention, you're going to pick up what these relationships are. If you're just paying attention, you can decide for yourself whether he's actually stopping time or if it's just in his mind. You know what I mean? As the artist, this is what I feel. As an artist, you stop time even if it's just fiction, right? I can pause. I can have an entire voiceover speaking over my paused self with deep pontifications about the universe if I want. If I want. I can do anything. As an artist, you have the ability to do anything. And that's something that most people just can't wrap their heads around. What does anything mean? What does thinking outside the box mean? Thinking outside the box means that you can do something that's never been done before, that might be even necessary and great for people around you. And like the real world, you know, all these competing interests try to stop Adam Driver's Caesar from building Megalopolis. We hear all the time about people inventing things and then mysteriously disappearing or dying. But seriously, I mean, here, the world is full of this lost notion of competition. Now, competition is a good thing. It is necessary, but it should not be always what we rely on. It should not be our base foundational religion. If we want to survive, we have to do it looking out for each other. And I think that's the beautiful thing, is that Caesar has a vision for how to look out for people in a way that will help them for years to come. And he commits fully to that vision, while everyone else is striving just to keep the status quo, just to keep things moving and treading along. And I feel in many ways that Adam Driver's character kind of reminds me a bit of Elon Musk, or maybe a little bit of, I don't know, he has that kind of strange, stoic oddity. He's kind of an oddity, you know, he's kind of unusual. I'm unusual, but I'm not that unusual, apparently. But, I mean, he has a vision that he sticks with that is controversial. But it's also, when we finally reach the finale, that I was really happy that it worked out. I was really happy that he built his Megalopolis after getting shot in the face, Godfather style. I mean, they went straight for the Godfather thing. And there was that confusing bit where his technology that he invented was used to regrow his eye where he was shot through. But I wish it had been a real effect and not a computer animated effect. I think that would have been cooler. But, you know, whatever. It's still cool. It's just a little trippy, a little bit confusing. But, you know, it is established, and maybe something's cut out, I don't know. It is established that essentially what he's trying to build as his technology for Megalopolis, whatever this technology is that he's created, is the same technology that's rebuilding his eye. And it's this kind of biomechanical technology. And I understand that is it's a lot to wrap your minds around. But fortunately for me, I grew up with Beast Wars and Beast Machines. And Beast Machines was literally entirely about the combination of biology with technology. It was a huge thematic aspect of the show. I think a lot of younger viewers, I understand, a lot of people my own age had a lot of mixed feelings, and some just straight up negative about Beast Machines. But here was a kids television show. This is why I love the 90s. A kids television show taking this very artistic, very theme-driven concept and making that its primary goal is to say to little kids, we have this great technology that we've depended on, but if you look at Beast Wars, all it did was lead us to war. And here we are in Beast Machines, having survived the Beast Wars on Earth, returned to Cybertron, and Megatron has essentially conquered all of Cybertron using technology, turned everyone into robots, and that the solution to this problem is finding a way for technology and biology to live together. And that literally by the show's end, spoiler alert for Beast Machines, literally by the show's end, that's the resolution, is that Megatron is trying to kill the biological heart of Cybertron. And Optimus Primal, the namesake descendant of Optimus Prime, he is trying to protect that organic nature, but it ends up being that both have to combine for Cybertron to live. And essentially to give all of the Transformers their sentience back. Because on the one hand, until all are one, on the one hand, Megatron brought the vision of bringing all Transformers into one space together, but he did it the wrong way, through this totalitarian tyranny, which we are very much on the way of experiencing right now with the rise of AI and robots that can do our jobs for us. And on the other hand, Optimus Primal saying the key to us all truly being one is both being sentient but having a merged relationship with technology and nature itself. And essentially that's what Megalopolis is. It is this technology that is also somehow organically reactive and organically friendly. This whole notion that everyone will have a garden, everyone will be able to grow their own food. He wants to give people something sustainable that does not need to be replaced every 5 years or every 3 months like a Brita. He wants to give people an actual future, an actual utopia. And the whole world tries to stop him. But by sheer fate, by sheer will, the willpower to stick to his guns and stick to his goals, Adam Driver's Caesar accomplishes his vision. And I think that's a beautiful thing, and I think it's a thing we all need to learn. And certainly if you are the hitmen, the gunmen, working for these lascivious people who would stop utopia, maybe don't. Maybe put the gun down. Put the device down. Consider that maybe your paycheck is not as valuable as a vision that could help people out, that could help maybe even you out. But of course, this theme, going back to society and what society actually is, society is not perfect. You see the people who are becoming homeless because homes are being demolished by Adam Driver. You know, they're quick to blame him, but they're also so quick. At first they blame the mayor. They say the mayor is allowing these things to happen. And then Shia LaBeouf so quickly turns them on to Caesar, who is actually making these things happen. All the while, everyone knows that Caesar is trying to build them something good for them, something better for them than what they had in the first place, something much, much more sustainable and useful, something that will last and they won't have to buy 6 more of across the next 7 months. You know, he's trying to do something good for them. But all the powers that be, for jealousy, for moral confusion, for, you know, just having a snub-nosed opinion about someone else, all the powers that be are against him. But even society itself is so fickle, it'll go from blaming one person to blaming another. The witch hunt. People are so willing to go for a witch hunt, especially when they're hungry and they need a home. And you see that, you know, society is no less fickle than Julia at the beginning of this movie, who is one of the well-to-dos, who is the mayor's daughter, but she's fickle and having fun and doing what she wants to do, not being tied to responsibility. But when she meets Adam Driver, something sparks in her that she needs to know. Why can he stop time? What's so special about you that you feel that you can behave the way you behave? And Adam Driver, he has no problem saying, well, I study and I work hard, and I choose to be around people who study and work hard, and I make no excuses for that. And it might make me a little less social and a little less interested in being, having social tact, but at the end of the day, I'm accomplishing what I want to accomplish. Anyway, Megalopolis was really beautiful, and I really felt like Francis Ford Coppola had a very layered and beautiful story about how society is, how we all really are. And the truth is that every single character is lost and dizzy and upset and spun around by their circumstances. Nobody's perfect. But the beautiful thing, and I think it's the message of John Lennon, the message of MLK, RFK. All you need is love. When Adam Driver and Natalie Emmanuel, when they choose to love each other, that's when creation happens. And it's not just Megalopolis, but they have a kid together. And it takes all the way until the end. After things get so much worse, exacerbated by Claudio, Shia LaBeouf, exacerbated by WoW, after everything gets so punishingly bad, when Adam Driver actually accomplishes his vision, and it's beautiful, and finally Giancarlo Esposito holds his granddaughter in his hands. That's when he realizes what Adam Driver is, and at least his capacity for good, and that beautiful respect that they then have for each other from that point on is wonderful. It's a really nice conclusion to the story. And so I really like this movie. It made sense to me, but I'm an artsy weirdo, so no surprise there. But yeah, let me know. Did you like the movie? How did you feel about it? Do you have questions? Do you think that I can answer them? I don't know. Really, we should be looking for videos of Francis Ford Coppola, see what he has to say. But if I can help you understand the movie, please let me know. But really, I want to know, what are your favorite scenes? Did you love the arrow and the butt scene? Oh my God, I still think that's hilarious. So that's what I have to say on Megalopolis. Hats off, fantastic movie. Wonderful time at the theaters. Wonderful artistic experience. Francis Ford Coppola, cast and crew. Had an excellent time. Thank you all for your hard work. And I'll see you guys next week.